Welcome to Sleep Comes Late. These are calm, unsettling stories for sleepless nights. Nothing too scary, just enough to keep you listening until you drift off. Turn your screen brightness down, get comfortable, and let the day fall away. Let's begin. I used to like delivering food at night. The streets were empty, the traffic lights predictable. Most people were already asleep, which meant fewer questions, fewer delays, fewer conversations. I could keep the radio low, follow the glowing line on my phone, and be home before 2 in the morning. That night started like any other. The order came in a few minutes after midnight. Same Thai place I'd picked up from dozens of times. Same items I'd seen before. No substitutions, no special instructions. The address was at the edge of my delivery zone, where the streetlights thinned out and the houses sat farther apart. I accepted without thinking. The house was small, single-story, with pale siding and a narrow porch. No cars in the driveway. As I pulled up, the porch light turned on automatically, washing the front door in a warm yellow glow. I knocked once. No answer. The app buzzed gently in my hand, reminding me to leave the order at the door. I set the bag down, took the photo, and marked it delivered. Steam curled faintly from the top of the bag as I stepped back. As I drove away, I glanced at the porch in my mirror. The bag sat perfectly upright, exactly where I'd left it. I didn't think about it again. The second delivery came the following night. Same restaurant. Same order, same address. I remember slowing down as I turned onto the street, a small prickle of recognition working its way up my spine. When the house came into view, my headlights caught something pale on the porch. The bag, still there. It hadn't been moved, tipped, or disturbed. No animals had gotten into it. No wind had knocked it over. It looked exactly the same as it had the night before, only now the paper was slightly darkened where moisture had settled. I sat in my car for a few seconds, engine running. Maybe they'd ordered twice by mistake. Maybe they'd been asleep. Maybe they were sick. I told myself these things calmly, reasonably, as I reached for the new bag. The porch light turned on again as I approached. I didn't knock this time. I placed the second bag neatly beside the first, lined up like someone had measured the distance between them. I took the photo, marked the delivery complete, and walked back to my car with the faint, uncomfortable sense that I was being watched from somewhere behind the door. I didn't look back. The third time, I knew something was wrong. It was the same order again, same total, same instructions, same house. By the time I pulled up, the two bags were still on the porch, cold now, untouched, sitting side by side like they'd been arranged deliberately. My heart started to beat faster. I checked the address, checked the order details. Everything matched. The porch light flicked on as soon as my tires crunched into the driveway. I stood there longer than I meant to, staring at the door. The windows were dark. The house was silent. I left the third bag, my hands shaking enough that I had to retake the photo. As soon as I got back into my car, I contacted support. The representative was polite and calm. Too calm. They told me there were no complaints from the customer, no unusual notes, no record of missed deliveries. Everything on their end looked normal. I asked if anyone else had been assigned to that address recently. There was a pause. Then they said, "You've been the primary driver for that location." The word primary sat strangely with me. They thanked me for checking in and told me to continue deliveries as usual. I ended the chat feeling foolish for calling, but the unease didn't leave. When the fourth order appeared, I rejected it immediately. I didn't hesitate. I didn't even read the details. I hit reject and set my phone down, relieved. A second later, it vibrated. The order was accepted. I stared at the screen, confused. I assumed I'd misclicked. My finger hovered uncertainly as the navigation loaded, guiding me back to the same street. I told myself I'd just drop it and be done. One last time. The house looked the same when I arrived. Quiet, still, porch light waiting. But this time, the front door was open. Not wide, just enough. The porch was empty. The 3 old bags were gone. I stood frozen at the edge of the steps, heart pounding. From where I stood, I could see into the front room. The interior was dark, but the outline of a table was visible. Along the wall, I could just make out shapes lined neatly in a row. The bags, all of them, brought inside, arranged carefully. I didn't step closer. I didn't knock. I didn't call out. I placed the new bag on the porch, exactly where the others had once been, took the photo from as far back as I could, and left. I didn't breathe properly until I was halfway down the street. That was the moment I decided I would never come back. I didn't care if the app penalized me. I didn't care if my acceptance rate dropped. I was done with this address. The next time the order came in, I rejected it deliberately. I watched my finger press the button. The screen froze. When it refreshed, the order was marked accepted. My hands started to shake. I contacted support again, panic creeping into my messages. This time, the representative apologized and told me the order would be reassigned manually. I was assured I wouldn't be required to complete it. "Please don't worry," they said. "You can go home." I logged off immediately and drove back to my apartment, checking my mirrors the entire way. I locked my door behind me and stood in the quiet, listening to my own breathing. For the first time that night, I felt a small sense of relief. It didn't last. The doorbell rang less than an hour later. I didn't move. I stood in the middle of my apartment with my shoes still on, keys still in my hand, listening to the sound fade into the walls. A second ring followed, spaced carefully, like whoever was out there expected me to take my time. I didn't go to the peephole. I didn't check the window. I didn't even breathe properly. I just stood there staring at my front door, waiting for the sound to stop. When it finally did, the hallway outside stayed quiet. No footsteps, no voices, nothing that sounded like someone walking away. A moment later, my phone vibrated. The app had opened on its own. Delivery completed. There was a photo attached, my porch, my welcome mat, a paper bag sitting neatly in front of my door, positioned close enough that whoever placed it must have been standing right where I was refusing to stand. The timestamp showed it had been taken less than a minute ago. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't open the door to check if it was real. I didn't move the bag. Eventually, the screen dimmed and went dark, and I stood there in the quiet with the feeling that the apartment had become smaller, as if the walls were leaning in to listen. I slept poorly, waking at every sound in my apartment. When morning came, sunlight filled the rooms and everything looked ordinary again. The front door was closed. The hallway was empty. Nothing had been left outside. I told myself that was proof enough. I took the next few days off from delivering. When I opened the app again, I switched my availability to daytime only. No nights, no late evenings. Just the hours when people were awake and streets were busy and houses felt occupied. The first few shifts were uneventful: lunch orders, office buildings, apartment complexes with open windows and music playing inside. The kind of deliveries where people waved or nodded or called out a quick thank you as they took the bag from my hands. Nothing strange happened. Days passed, then weeks. The unease faded, but it never disappeared completely. It stayed somewhere just beneath the surface, surfacing at odd moments. When I passed a quiet street, when a porch light turned on as I walked by, when the app hesitated before loading an address. I tried not to think about the house, but I did. Not constantly, not in a way that stopped me from working, just in small, persistent fragments. The porch light, the way the bags never moved, the word primary. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. It happened on an afternoon shift when I was already nearby for another delivery. The sun was high, the street busy enough that it felt safe. I told myself I wouldn't stop. I just wanted to drive past, just to see if anything was there. I turned onto the street and slowed down. The house was gone. At first, I thought I'd made a mistake, that I'd taken the wrong turn or misremembered which side of the street it was on. I drove a little farther, then turned around and drove back the way I'd come. Still nothing. I pulled over and parked. There was no empty lot, no sign of construction, no patch of dirt or gravel where a house had once stood. The neighboring houses sat closer together than I remembered, their fences nearly touching, as if there had never been space for another building between them. My heart started to pound. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the stretch of sidewalk where the porch should have been. I tried to picture it in daylight, the pale siding, the narrow steps, the place where I'd set the bags down night after night. There was nowhere it could have been. For a moment, I wondered if I'd imagined all of it, if exhaustion or routine had filled in the details. If I'd delivered to a different house on a different street and convinced myself it was always the same one. My phone was still in my hand. I opened the app and went to my delivery history. The orders were all there. Same restaurant, same dates, same times, same address. I tapped one and opened the map. The location pin sat exactly where I was parked. I looked up from the screen. There was nothing in front of me. The street was quiet, but not deserted. A car passed behind me. Someone stepped out of a nearby house carrying a bag of groceries. Everything looked normal, complete, uninterrupted. I felt a sudden urge to leave. I pulled back onto the road and finished the rest of my deliveries without stopping to think too hard about what I'd seen. I smiled when people answered their doors. I handed over bags. I followed the glowing line on my phone. When my shift ended, I went home. I didn't check the app again that night. I still deliver food. I just don't work nights anymore. And I don't go back to that street. If you're still awake, that's okay. These stories tend to linger. Take a deep breath. Let the quiet return. And if you enjoyed listening, there are more nights like this ahead. Good night.